Welcome to Reformed and Real, where we take a journey with our people fresh out of prison, and we want to find out how the community around them really feels. My name is Mario Hernandez. I'm one of the afflicted people that got released back into the community, and we're here to try and figure out how this looks.
And my name is Wayne Burt, curious onlooker who wants to know about our prison system, get to know the stories beyond the stigma of incarceration, and because, like Mario, I believe all stories count.
God, we haven't been able to say that for a minute. 4 weeks, I think.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I'm pretty rusty. I think we got to get warmed up here.
The stories still count, though.
Yeah. Well, I think we're coming back really strong because we have a really dazzling guest today.
Yes, we do.
Rashmi Mukherjee, Associate Professor of Literature, Humanities, and Culture at Boise State University, but also the Director of the Inside Out program, BSU IDOC.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you, Wayne. So yes, I designed the program in the likeness of Inside Out, but we haven't had the opportunity to formalize it with that. So when you said director of the program, that's why I looked at you, because yes, I do all the work and more, possibly, but I haven't had the resource to formalize it. But that's exactly what we're doing. All
right. Well, welcome to Reformed and Real.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes,
it's a real pleasure.
Welcome. First of all, I met you on my Facebook.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. I contacted you on Messenger. Yeah. But and I did that not just because I was looking through someone but I had heard about you, Mario, a lot at ISCI, which is Idaho State Correctional Institution. Yes. That's where I teach one class, sometimes two a year, but I also have started my own program, small projects that I do with the residents there. And I take Boise State students inside. That's the Inside Out program. And we do storytelling, we do leadership building cohort, but I also am editing a book right now. So we quite literally go and collect stories. So I'm a story collector when I'm not a teacher there.
So the ISCI, that's my old home. Of better verbiage, right? Which is how you heard my name, because I used to be in that institution as an inmate.
So last semester I taught a class on film and literature, and for 2 weeks, and I was teaching the same class, another version of the same class at BSU as well. So the Shawshank Redemption, both the novella and the film, was part of the curriculum. And I had scheduled it in a way where Boise State students would go inside, go to ISCI, and my IDOC students and BSU students would sit together, watch it, discuss it. Now, this was part of, for Boise State, it was part of a service learning thing. Yeah. And for ISCI, anytime you take people inside, it's always good to have that. So, discussion. From my point of view as an educator, I thought, I'm selfish. I'm very selfish when it comes to these kind of stuff. I had discussed this before in other classrooms, and I just wanted it to be new. And, it was interesting for me to see how they would talk about it. So BSU, most of them had seen the Shawshank Redemption, Boise State. Some of the students, my IDOC students, have not seen that. So that's
weird, huh?
That is weird. And these are two of the younger ones who had just gotten to ISCI, 6 months, 1 year. The BSU students who had seen it, they went in. But they tell me they saw it in a different way. And so that led to class discussion, and we thought we would record it. And that's why the media department, and that's where your name kept coming back up. I saw the work that they do. It's fantastic. Some of them said we could be learning more here in this space than we do on campus. And so I just thought it would be nice to get in touch with Mario, and I didn't know how to do that. They kept saying, it's learning to live, and it is somewhere on Orchard and this and that. And then suddenly I saw your face on my Facebook profile. I said, is this the Mario? And that's how I contacted.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing. Yeah.
Trolling people on Facebook finally paid off. Huh?
Yeah. That's funny.
How first, a couple years ago, did you originally get involved with ISCI? How did that happen?
So I did a story exchange with a class with So I was contacted by someone who was teaching a class there at ISCI through BSU. So, and she and I got to know each other through the Wasmuth Center. At that point, that's where she was. And one thing led to the other, and I was looking for something for my students. And she said, do you want to do something? I'm looking for someone to do something, I said, why don't we do this story exchange? So we engaged in a story exchange. So my students, at that point in time, I couldn't go inside. We didn't have permission to take students inside. I could go in only twice, and I went afterwards. So I thought the good thing would be first they write the stories, they exchange, and then they recorded the stories. So for example, if Mario and I were exchanging the stories, when we are recording it, I record it saying, hi, my name is Mario and this is my story. And Mario would record it, hi, my name is Rashmi and this is my story. The goal or the objective of that exercise was empathy building.
Yeah.
When you read a story, when you're...
My favorite word, empathy.
It is.
I love that word.
It is.
Yeah.
So, even if I don't want, in that moment, I'm reading 4 pages of Mario's life story. It was a daunting exercise for both groups. There was, I think Tanner, was reading a story from a 19-year-old girl who had a heartbreak. And Tanner was like, oh my gosh, why are you putting me, and then the 19-year-old is reading a story about somebody who had been incarcerated for 20 years.
Yeah.
No connection with children, no connection. So, it was a very heavy experience for all the emotionally heavy experience. So that's what got started. And then I went there finally at the end of the semester. The space, ISCI as a space, it's something different. So the, people, their staff and the teachers, they tell me this is a very real and unreal space. I honestly, the first time I went in and then, kept talking, and I'm like, these people are all Zen Buddhists in themselves. There's such deep philosophy, when you have, these are all things I've heard. I'm not making it up, but when you have so much time with yourself, and when you're thinking, you just get that opportunity, dive deep in.
Sure.
Self-reflection.
The term I keep thinking of is self-examination.
Yeah.
And I think if there's a thread through many of the people we've interviewed, it's that.
Yeah, the time and space that they have is important to them. And I'll tell you, when you're in, let's just call it a box, for lack of a better word, when you're in a box, you have a lot of time to reflect and to think about yourself and, where you've been, who you are, who you want to be, where you're going. So with that in mind, you're going to meet some pretty interesting people with some pretty good perspective. And unfortunately, the choices that they made, that I've made, have put me in that position. But when we're in there, it's like, who am I? And the first person that gets to talk to them that doesn't know what people are like that are incarcerated, they see something different. They're like, oh, this person really cares, or this person really loves just like everybody else. And this person wants to, walk, breathe, cut grass, all that stuff just like everybody else does. Unfortunately, they're hurt. I call them broken souls. We're broken. And with that brokenness, when you get inside of an institution, you're thinking everything that you can do to get better. And that's what you hear in those words when people write those words, and when they write those stories, when they sing those songs, when they edit those videos, when they do that work inside a prison, it's everything they got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As you were saying this, deep time with yourself. As an academic, I was just blown because there are things that we read theoretically in philosophy books. So many a times I actually ask them, did you read a Nietzsche? Did you read a Foucault? Because it feels like you did. Where did this come from? And it's all, so as a student of philosophy, literature, history, culture, for me, it was fascinating to see that, yes, art imitates life and life imitates art. The philosophers were not just talking from, just for the air. There is something about this space.
Rashmi, I do have a question for you. So,
Sure.
tell me about when you felt like the stigma of the, let's say, inmate / resident inside a prison / criminal / everything that else that everybody thinks about in the community, when that stigma broke in your head, if you have one situation.
That's actually a great question. I have been wanting to talk about this, but it's a hard one to answer as well, because you are in that space, you're teaching, and everybody who knows me, and I'm always careful which student of mine is going to listen to this. But yes, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I am a human being, and when I was talking about the volunteer training, and there are some inhibitions that you carry when you go inside, because at the end of the day, it is true, and they tell you that you are going to teach a class of convicted felons.
Yep.
And yes, this country incarcerates the maximum number of people, Idaho being one of the top states in that too. When you're teaching a class, when you're sharing knowledge, it's about respecting your students as well. It goes both ways. I believe in the whole student. For me, a student's life does not begin and end in my classroom. There's a life outside, there's a life after. And that's what helps me teach the way I do. So here I was with a group of people, and even though, I had information about them, which is available in the public domain, I just don't like looking at them, because I don't think that does anything.
Right.
That's very that's just one part of their life.
Right.
Anyway, so the class that I was teaching, and this was November 2024, and it was a class on storytelling. And I was teaching a short story by Margaret Atwood, Canadian author, The Bread. It's a very short story. And it's a 1.5-page story with 4 different stories of bread.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, you should read it. It's just fantastic. So one is in a camp, one is in a prison, one is... So, it has 4 different spaces from where and what does bread mean to us. So, of course, I go to my class with all my passion and I start talking about it. I just wasn't feeling it from the other side. Right.
Yep.
And I also just didn't, know how to make conversation, because when I teach, I bring in life context. I bring in this, I bring in that. And just so that my students can engage in a productive way. Here I had no idea. And also I was careful, I think, what I say and what I don't say, because this was bread and most of them had family in it. So, everybody was in it, but not in it at the same time. And suddenly somebody said, I looked at them and said, let's take a break. And then they came back after the break. And just like that, I had not planned it. I said, okay, let's see, what is your bread story? Do you guys have bread stories of your own? Somebody said, oh, I remember, the smell of the bread, because my grandmother used to work in a bakery somewhere in northern Idaho. We were really poor. We didn't have money to buy this. So my grandmother would walk to go and get fresh bread, the bread that they would throw away from the bakery. Somebody said something else. And then next day, he wrote a story, a bread story. He said something in the class to the point where, he was 6 years old and had a sister who is autistic savant, mom drug addict, dad was in prison the night before Christmas. And his world was his sister, everything that his sister said. So his life, he never grew up in that sense, because his reality was his sister's reality. And so she told him, do you think Santa is going to be upset if we asked for bread? Because they were hungry, they hadn't had food. And then she went off to sleep. And he ran to his class teacher's house at 8 in the night, Christmas Eve. And he was upset, but, who had told him that you come to me if you need anything? And he went to borrow some money. He got some money from him, went to the gas station. And the money that he had, he could only afford like a loaf of bread or something, half a loaf. And he just gave him some sprinkles for free. You put those on cake and all. He got that back home. And he waited the whole night for his sister to wake up just to put the bread and sprinkles on top of it. And his sister was so happy, the smile on her face. And for him, that's the biggest, Christmas gift he could ever. And so the moment he said that, I said, you know what? I don't care if this is true or false or what. It's a fantastic story.
Yeah.
And then I said, his name is Chris. I said, Chris, do you write stories? And Chris said, yeah. Do you want me to give you this story? I said, can you write it for me and give it to me? The next day, Chris wrote story. Fantastic story. And, it opened up a means of communication for them, for me, where I didn't have the single story of convicted felon. Now I had the other story. And that really helped me broke down. And, I don't know. I mean, I don't think they all lie when they say this. But if you go to ISCI and if you ask anybody who has been in my class, you ask them about me. And I think most of them have very positive experience. And one of the reason why I think I keep going back and they like me and they keep having me back is because of this connection that we have been able to. And stories have helped me in that. And then after that, the stories started coming. And then I would go back home with this stack of paper on my bedside table. I would read them. That became my favorite bedside story, crying myself to sleep every night because those were very intense emotional stories, very sad stories. And then it kept piling up. And my husband told me, what are you going to do with those? Because it just made me so guilty. Now in today's day and age, we all have digital copies of everything. We just don't have papers like that. I couldn't throw them away. And he said, you need to, because when you share a story with someone, you embody a part of them. You're reading it and they're trusting you with that truth. Whatever it is, in that space. And I'm like, I have to do something. And that's where the idea for the book came, that the stories have to go somewhere. Stories about, somebody who works in the clinic. It's not a hospital, but a hospice care. That man's story. And he's writing about how, you get connected to the human there. And then the moment they die, you're asked to pack up and walk back to your cell. And so I have a story about someone who's talking. His story is about walking back to his cell at 4:00 on a December morning when his friend just died. And, and him thinking that the officer who is following him to his cell in that small cart never asks him to, it's very cold. And he's thinking, can she be, I wish she asked me to hop into that cart because I'm really not being able to walk right now. But then at the end of the story, he forgives her because he knows. And it's called The Line in Between Us because he understands that she's doing her job. These kind of stories, I think, made me a much more forgiving person, patient person. That's what I see there. I asked this thing to someone like Lawrence, what gives you hope? Yeah. Brian, what gives you hope? I see the smile. I see, most important, empathy, humanity. So it's kind of
where you least expect it, right?
Absolutely.
Or where people would think you'd least expect it, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's that stigma that people think that, and I think I harp on this a lot, that people don't understand that there's real people walking inside of the gates. Yeah. And people that have been hurt, people that have hurt people, people that they want change and they want to be understood, and they want to be able to break that hard shell around their heart so they can, feel normal again and feel like a human being again. And it's a crazy place, and I think it's getting a little better when we got people like you that go inside the institutions and make people feel normal again. I think that's part of rehabilitation. That's part of growth. That's part of, feeling like you're human, because most of the people in there don't have the experience with a real life, have spent their whole lives in addiction or abusive growing up, or, their own personal family, or, lots of trauma. And I think that every person that goes in there, like yourself, changes just a little bit in somebody that they meet. And it's great.
Yeah. And I changed myself. It's both ways. So some of the conversations that I have inside are the best conversations as an academic that I can have. I have no qualms in saying I don't have that kind of intellectual stimulation outside. And mind you, I'm a university professor. This is a bubble. You should be having the best conversations in that space. I do, but that space teaches me just because it's so organic. When people speak, there is no computer, there is no cell phone, there is no distraction.
Yeah.
Even my students, when they go inside, I see a very different side to them. One student in particular in my class in Boise State, her head is always down during class because she's doing something.
Well, some of it is the lost practice of listening, I
Yes.
think.
Yeah.
And you experience a situation where there's a greater abundance of it, it
Yeah.
sounds like, which is so important to
Yeah.
all of us.
Yeah.
Mario and I don't chew the scenery. We chew the scenery less and less in these episodes,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
because people have vast stories to unwind,
Yeah.
right? And that's important to get that stuff out there.
Yeah. Rashmi, we're ready to wrap this up. We've
Okay.
had we've gotten a lot talked about here, and we appreciate you. One thing I want to ask you is one more thing. Like this is, in my perspective, is always trying to get out your perspective of the people that are behind bars, because we want people to get their toes wet a little bit and kind of feel what we feel with the people that are in there, the good people that are in there. So. If you had one takeaway, something you want to tell people that are out there, what to think and what to feel, and how to how to perceive what's going on in there.
I think, people have to look at the human inside and not just get stuck by the space like prison. There's a reason that it is so far away from social, like from Boise. Anyone who's driving there, they can see the green fade away and suddenly it gets very gray. And it is not a hyperbole, it is true, and it is done by design. But that space so I talked about my students, our education, our exchange, but there are things being made inside prison. These are people who are contributing to the society, and we reap the benefit of that. We just choose to not think of the people who are making that. Be it music, be it documentary, be it number plates. There are factories and they get paid so little doing what they do, the labor, right? So we are taking their labor, but we are not considering the human inside. I think there has to be more engagement, more stories from outside, for the outside world, because we call it the correctional institution, which means there's some correction. These people are going to re-enter the society. They have to be accepted, welcomed. They have to find a space. And now that I work with my students who are outside on parole, and I see the hardships that they go through every day. And the other thing is 1 in 3 families have someone who was incarcerated or is incarcerated. In Boise, at least, this has been a shock to me. And the good side of that is now I'm friends with the family. Many mothers, sisters, ex-girlfriends, and that's just fascinating to see how so I think my one takeaway, I want to continue to do the work that I do, go inside and teach, but I also want to be a bridge. I think there has to be more and more voices who speak up. So there's one inside out, there has to be an outside in kind of a program as well. And just the more stories we get out there, the more we talk about it, the more.
Yeah, well,
Sure.
a metaphor I tell people all the time is like when, if you have let's say you have Burger King, right, and you hire 10 people, half of them aren't going to work out, right? It's got nothing to do with convicted felons.
Yeah. No.
You know what I mean? And that's everything that we do in this world. It's every job, every place, every school, everything we go into. Not everybody makes it. And I think that when people stop, let's just say judging that situation, right? I think we get better when you just realize that, they're just like my neighbors over there, but they did something different and they're in there and it's okay.
Yeah.
My job is to make sure that when they come out here, that they're going to be our neighbors, right? And you said it perfectly. They have to come out sometime.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them have to come out.
Absolutely.
And when they do we want educated? They've got their emotions are back to where they should be, and they can be a productive member of society, or do we want people that come out just a shell?
Yeah.
because the shell doesn't get anywhere.
We have to talk about recidivism,
Yeah.
and that we have to take responsibility of a society for that. So, I just want to end with one thing, that I have gotten a lot of love, a lot of respect in that place. And I value that a lot.
That's great.
Yeah.
When's the book coming out?
Never ask an academic that question. Never.
That's why I asked.
Yeah.
I'm a reformed academic myself. Yeah, that's why I asked.
Well, soon, very soon. I'm trying to make the introduction as informative as possible. And I'm writing that all the things that I said, I'm talking about, how philosophical that space is. And the collection of the story itself, the method of collection itself has been a huge revelation. The challenge, good and bad both, has been stories don't stop coming. It's continuously coming in.
Mm-hmm.
We had to go back to do a couple of workshops. So that's what I did, writing workshops. All summer we did writing workshops. And my students, Boise State students, helped me in that. So it's been a good collaboration. And we are almost there. We are done, wrapping up right now. It's a matter of just sending it to the publishers. And
Good.
All right. Well, thank you, Rashmi, for joining us today. It's been a great conversation. And again, when I say we, I used to be in prison myself. Thank you for all you do for people that are incarcerated and how that helps us get better and understand ourselves and be respected as people. And I thank you for that.
thank you for all you do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining Reformed and Real. My name is Mario Hernandez.
And I'm Wayne Bird.
And we'll see you guys next time.